More importantly, Malcolm Wallace, who works for Lyndon Johnson, has left a 34-point match fingerprint in the sniper's nest.
You think he did it?
I think he did it. And I think 6 witnesses go to the Warren Commission and say they saw him, or a man who met his description, heavy-set, balding, glasses, in the window of the Texas School Book Depository in the minutes just before the shooting. That testimony is disregarded. And one witness, Richard Carr, who says he not only saw Wallace in the window, but saw him flee. There are 4 attempts on his life between then and 1978.
I was involved in this a lot. I knew Jim Garrison, the district attorney, who believed it was a conspiracy. I never heard the name Wallace. Where did this come from?
Wallace was a longtime convicted murderer, had been on the Johnson payroll, worked at the U.S. Agriculture Department and a patronage job under Johnson. I believe that it is Wallace who is the murderer, for example, of Henry Wallace, the agriculture agent who was investigating the Johnson-Billy Sol Estes investigation.
Is he in the Warren Commission report?
He was never questioned by the Warren Commission. They disregarded eyewitness testimony that places Wallace on the place because on the 6th floor. Because Wallace was a convicted murderer, his fingerprint file was available, and it
met with anyone, Johnson, or anyone?
He was at that party the night before the assassination.
Okay,
See, a lot of people do not understand how the mafia or the organized crime, whatever you want to call it, is involved in our government. It's a silent government, you know. If they would pay their dues, they could operate, okay?
Right.
And even the Texas Rangers, because of the organized crime, allowed the mafia to come into Texas. Not many people know that. We were playing poker at the Carousel Club, and Jack Ruby came over, and he said, "You know what this is?" And I said, "Yeah, Jack, I know that you run with the Great White Fathers of Dallas. I knew this. I mean, these are things we just flat knew." But it stung me that he would be this involved with knowing where the President of the United States. At that time in my life, I thought they were untouchable, you know, the President. So then, of course, the information came out that, you know, about the assassination.
Yeah.
And that's primarily because Lyndon was under the gun over some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Had the assassination not happened the day that it did, and Lyndon Johnson would have probably gone to prison, they would have gotten rid of him. He was so involved with some of this.
So Mac Wallace was at this private meeting at Merchant's house.
Malcolm Wallace was Lyndon Johnson's hatchet man. I mean, there were, I think, about 18, 19 murders that...
So he was Johnson's shooter?
Yeah. And I was out at the Dallas Gun Club, and it was a day or two before the assassination. And who was out there but Malcolm Wallace? And this guy was so great. If he pulled a trigger, he hit his target. I've watched him hour on end. And he loved 22s.
So he was a very accurate shooter.
He was the
marksman.
best. He was a good marksman. He didn't miss.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was found dead in Marshall, Texas. Was it Marshall? No. One of these Texas, Pittsburgh maybe, Texas. Again, someone said he had been killed first and then placed in this car. I know the car was picked up and all evidence was removed.
when he was done, he had a 34-point match. And when you mention that in criminal circles to an investigator, how confident would you feel with a 34-point match? Oh, that's a slam dunk. It can't miss. It doesn't get any better than that. You give me a 34-point match on any case in the United States, I'll take it to court and win.
The inked and the latent print are made by the same finger. And the other evidence that I've been presented with was Malcolm Wallace's left little finger, without a reasonable doubt.
Is that copy the same as the original which you gave to the FBI?
I would say no. There is some films maybe missing, some frames. Some of the frames were ruined.
Did you think at that time that the shots came from the book depository building?
No, I thought it came from a fence between the book depository and the railroad track.
Did anyone else who you know or who you've spoken with also believe that the shots came from there?
Most everyone thought it came from the fence.
There was a deputy sheriff, which I think was stationed under the underpass, Buddy Walters. At this time, I says, you know, I felt something sting me on the face as I was standing down there. I said, just sting, and Walters looked at me and says, yes, says, you got blood on your cheek. He says, where were you standing? I says, well, down by the underpass. So we started walking down there, and when Walters got about, I'd say 10 feet away, he says, look there on the curb, there was a very visible mark on the curb where a bullet had struck. Either a fragment of the bullet or a piece of the concrete. It flew up and scratched my face. He said, go to the city police headquarters and make a statement, which I did.
When the shots were being fired, your first impression was that they came from the area near the wooden fence.
That's correct.
And did you see anything which might indicate to you where the shots came from?
The smoke came from behind the hedge, and I saw a puff of smoke still lingering underneath the trees in front of the wooden fence.
Is this the exact spot you were standing on November 22nd, Mr. Holland?
That's correct. This is the exact spot that I was standing November the 22nd, waiting for the parade.
And where did you hear that third shot come from?
Right over about 20 or 30 feet from the other end of that little picket fence.
And where was the smoke that you saw?
It drifted right out underneath those green trees, those two trees.
From behind the fence?
From behind the fence. Immediately after the president's car came underneath this overpass, four of us broke a run around this fence to find out if we could see anybody leaving the area. Jumped this steam line, this pipe, and one man right behind me jumped, and another one jumped right on top of him.
Fell on top of him?
Fell on top of him. We were jumping over the bumpers, over the hood of the cars to work our way to the spot that we saw the smoke and heard the shot. Then we came up to the wooden fence.
Mr. Holland, did you remain behind here for a while when the police officers were searching the area?
Approximately 15 minutes before I had to go back to my office. There was about 40 or 50. people around here searching.
And what did you find here?
A lot of footprints behind this car, mud on the bumpers. And I looked around to see if I could find some empty shells or any evidence of a shot being fired and the bullet shell rejected from the gun. And this is where I saw the smoke from the third shot.
The Warren Commission published just a very small portion of your testimony and used your testimony as proof that no shots could have come from behind the fence. Did they accurately and fairly use your testimony?
They are wrong, because my testimony, and I made it very clear, that there was a fourth shot fired, and one of those shots came from behind that picket fence.
Right here?
Right here on this spot.
And where did you think you heard the shots come from?
From behind the overpass over there, triple overpass. That's where I thought the shots were coming from.
And where did you see the man run?
Over behind that wooden fence, past the cars, and over behind the Texas Depository Building.
Did you give that information to the Dallas Sheriff's Department on the very day of the assassination?
Yes, I did. I'd say in about 30 minutes after the assassination.
Were you ever called as a witness by the Warren Commission?
No, sir. No, sir.
The final shot had to come from the grassy knoll somewhere in that area to hit him in the side of over his ear. There was at least one shot came from that direction, and it took the top of his head off and blew his brains out and backwards. And I would swear that over my mother's grave to this day.
From the results of what I saw, his head exploding, absolutely it exploded. I would think that the shot came from behind the picket fence, which borders the top of the grassy knoll.
As the presidential limousine was rounding the curve on Elm Street, there was a loud explosion. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but it sounded like a loud firecracker or a gunshot. And it sounded like it came from the left and in front of us, towards the wooden fence. And there was a puff of smoke that came underneath the trees on the embankment. I was talking with a patrolman Foster at the time, and as soon as we heard the shots, we ran around to the wooden fence. And when we got there, there was no one there, but there was footprints in the mud around the fence, and there was footprints on the wooden 2x4 railing on the fence.
Were you questioned by the Dallas police on that day?
Yes, I was.
Did you give your name to the Dallas police?
Yes, I did.
Did you tell them what you've just told me?
Yes, I did.
Were you subsequently questioned by agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation?
About a month later, I was questioned by the FBI.
Did you tell them what you told me and what you told the Dallas police?
Yes, I did.
Were you ever called as a witness by the Warren Commission?
No, sir, I wasn't.